Alright guys, so I just got done finishing Alan Wake 2 not too long ago. Actually, of today, I finished the entire game. I did not play the DLC because I did not want to go through the entire game again, so I just watched a couple of clips, but I gotta say, man, Alan Wake 2 did not disappoint. The game is really, really good as far as narrative, as far as graphical design. This game definitely took graphics to a whole different level, even incorporating like video in the game, like where it almost looks cinematic movie-wise. They actually got a bunch of, it seems like they got a bunch of movie cameras to actually shoot some of the scenes. The intricacies of each kind of like storytelling aspects of the entire thing was amazing. The character development from Alan Wake to even the new Saga Anderson, even Alex Casey as well. All these characters are very loved and cared for, and you can really tell they put in so much effort and time into developing all of these characters throughout the entire series that's in this game. Alan Wake did not disappoint at all. I really enjoyed the narrative aspect and the true detective type of style of gameplay that it was. At first, I didn't really get to it and really like engage with it too much, but once I got down to it and really understood how it worked, I really got to loving exactly what was going on, especially Saga's mind place, where this is kind of the key elements to the gameplay here, where you go into her mind and kind of investigate all these clues and treasures that you find throughout the entire gameplay. So it was kind of interesting watching that kind of unfold, because the more you gathered, the more the story expanded, the more you understood about what was going on. And I think that's one of the aspects that I really enjoyed about the game, and also one of the things that actually frustrated me in the beginning of it. I think that because I was kind of not understanding what was going on and all of the plot, because everything was kind of thrown at you all at once, it was a little hard to kind of gather all that. But once you get to the mechanics of the gameplay, you really get to slow down, you go with the pacing and not try to rush through everything. You kind of really get to understand what the whole game is about. Once you slow down and take in the whole environment, take in the world, you get to really pull the pieces together and really understand the whole storyline aspect that they're trying to go for, which the storyline is amazing. I think the storyline unfolds, and it just folds back into itself. It's such a roller coaster of a ride that you never know if it's ever going to end. You never know what the starting point is. It's almost like you appeared on top of a roller coaster and you're just full blast mode, man. If you went to Six Flags and you got into the Superman, or you got into the Roadrunner, it's one of those things where you just appear immediately and things are happening. The world is kind of going all the shit back crazy, especially from the first Alan Wake. It kind of takes off from there and it does not skip a beat at all. It's almost like you're immersed into the world immediately once again. And I think the game does a really great job into really telling you what's been happening with the world. For a lot of new players who did not play the first game, this is one you can definitely jump into really quickly, and it's actually a really enjoyable experience. You know, once you give the game a little bit of time, if you're someone who's going into the game and really rushing through it all, you're really not going to enjoy yourself, because you really got to pay attention to the fine details. You really got to pay attention to exactly what they're saying and what is going on, because this story could get definitely convoluted and can get a little mixed up if you're not, if you're skipping through scenes or you're not reading everything. Like, it could get a little bit tricky once down the road, but once you get a grasp of that, you really get to understand what exactly is happening with all these type of characters that are going on. I think as far as the concept of the game, I think it's really interesting kind of how they were able to almost bring these it's not necessarily a multiverse, but it's a multiverse like thing. I really enjoyed how they did that, especially with the movie scenes. Like, the fact that they were able to bring real actors in and it kind of incorporated that into the game, it almost seemed like seamless. Like, they put so much effort into the game, you can really tell how much passion they had it. And Sam Lake, I guess, is the director or creator of the game. He really, even inserting himself into it, making such a bold statement like that, like, I'm going to put myself into the game, playing Alex Casey, the detective that Wake writes about. It's so crazy and funny that all that is kind of playing out. And this game isn't necessarily full horror, but it's kind of horror, true detective, and almost magic mystery, everything that you would think about. But the fact that it's core basis is kind of a true detective game is amazing. I think they really did a great job. These are one of the games that I have not played like this ever. I don't think I've ever actually played something that had me fully engaged into the whole, building the pieces with the characters. And I think that was one of the great aspects of this game, is that you're building with them, you're figuring out what's going on. You're just as confused as they are. They're trying to figure out exactly what is going on just as much as you are. And I think that's one of the key points that really got me into the game, because when I was feeling confused, they were feeling confused. And I can only imagine how much, if we were in that situation, how exactly would we try to figure out everything. And I think Saga Anderson's kind of game mechanic, the mind place, was one of the things to really gather your thoughts. And I think that was such a fantastic idea from the developers, to really bring you and narrow all the ideas in and kind of incorporate everything that you've been learning and trying to piece it all together. It's almost like a desk, and you have all the puzzle pieces right there, and you're just trying to figure out what the corner pieces are, what the middle pieces are, and just kind of having building blocks and growing and growing and growing. And the more information you gain, the more the storyline progresses, and the more you figure out about exactly what is going on in this universe, in that Cauldron Lake and that Bright Falls. Like, it's so cool, because the whole world itself is alive. You go next to the NPCs and they're talking about, hey, I've been having nightmares lately, or I've been feeling this, or I don't know what's actually going on. I feel like something's wrong. Like, everybody is acknowledging what is going on, and almost trying to figure out with you, trying to figure out what the characters, what the hell is going on. And wow, it built this immersiveness that I have not seen in another game yet, and I really appreciate that, especially since this was a little bit of a slower paced game. Not fully, but it was definitely one of those moments where you gotta take in and be in the moment, which I also appreciate. Not many games do that. Many games you can kind of just turn off your brain and not really get to the core of it, or really connect with it. But things like God of War and things like this has that emotional connection built into it, and I think I really appreciate that. And that's one of the things that I really loved about this game. And here's Alan Wake after 13 years. The last game would being 2010. I know that there was a little bit of DLC and stuff like that, which I didn't play, and also Control that added into the whole storyline. But the fact that they brought back after 13 years and acknowledged that was amazing, because 2010, I was like a kid. I can't even remember. I remember playing this game on 360, so it was so cool to now be in this current moment of my life. The funny thing that Alan Wake is still in that moment as well. We'll see what ends up happening, right? So yeah, man, like it's such a lot of interesting concepts in this game, and I would recommend you guys, if you do have a little bit of a playthrough, to read all the notes, watch all the tapes, listen to a lot of the music. I was so surprised every time a chapter ended, there was like a music playing that they seemed to create it themselves, almost pop, rock, like everything. Like, they actually put so much care into it. Like, you can really feel yourself in the environment, almost processing everything with them, and also processing in that moment what was going on. I think Scratch was an interesting villain as well. It almost is an entity. It isn't one person. It's like a culmination of many evil things that hopefully we get to see a little bit more down the road. But this character was such an interesting one, because it's almost putting yourself against yourself, and that's one of the, I don't want to spoil too much about it. I'll try to make it spoiler free, but later down the road we get to see exactly what that means, and I think Scratch is such a weird, almost scary thing to even think about, bringing out all of your insecurities, all of your anxieties, all your fears, and having the self-doubt in your ears. So we can all kind of relate to that in a way. So Scratch is almost, I know that in the game it's a little bit like obviously portrayed bigger than what it is, but I'm saying if you connect it to the real world type of things, you really get to understand like, oh, this could be a real thing. I could see myself falling into this. I could see myself being like Alan or being like Saga, where I'm falling into these, pressure from the devil, right, per se. But like, still, like, I think Scratch was a wonderful built character, and even the villain himself, even though that we'll get to see a little later on what exactly he actually is. And I think Alan Wake as well is almost such a complex character, but always worried and concerned and always trying to progress. I think that's one thing I appreciated by Alan, is that he never gave up, even in moments where he talks about, man, I just gotta give up, I can't do this, it's just a loop and a loop and a loop and a loop, and I don't know where this is ever gonna end. And you really get to see how much of a struggle it is for him. And or even the other side of that, where Saga Anderson finally goes into that, and kind of seeing her actually try to fight that and how she's dealing with it. I just thought it was a wonderful story. I think that I really enjoyed myself with the gameplay. It was actually such a relief after I pushed myself through the whole aspect of getting frustrated and not really understanding what's going on. I did have to watch a couple of videos to gather more information on some characters that I missed, because I think the DLC and Control are two games that you might want to watch or you might want to play if you guys are into that. Like, you really want to try to understand the world that you're in, but it's very big payoff. I think one thing I want to talk about as far as the gameplay wise, I don't think the gameplay was such amazing gameplay. It wasn't. It was kind of funky at times. You know, there is a perfect dodge where you kind of drop the enemies, and I thought that was okay. But there was not really much you can do and capitalize off of that, because by the time that they fell, some other entities already coming at you. So it was kind of difficult a little bit, and I don't know if it was worthwhile. And as far as like the hitting mechanic, you know, you could punch the enemies as well. The whole like fighting mechanics was all right. Like, it wasn't bad at all, but it wasn't like horrible, but it wasn't excellent. You know, it wasn't redefining the genre. I could see that they took a lot of things from Resident Evil. So once you ever see that menu, you're gonna see exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's just a copy and paste of Resident Evil, and you know, it works. It's a good system, and don't fix what's not broken. But yeah, I definitely enjoy myself with this game. I would recommend anybody to go play it if you haven't. Take your time with it, be patient with it. The story definitely unfolds. If you guys are looking to get back into it or looking for a game to play, this is definitely one of those from last year that is a must. Very amazing narrative game, and it was super fun. Make sure you guys go get it. I'm gonna rate this game a 9.2 out of 10.